From potential to prosperity, activating regional value chains. The theme of the Africa Business Forum 2025, where 6 experts and innovators gathered for a roundtable discussion to explore the promise of the livestock pharmaceuticals sector, how innovation and technology can transform the industry, as well as the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
This session explores how technology is transforming special economic zones and regional value chains in livestock, pharmaceuticals, and agri-parks. Now, experts will discuss digital tools, automation, artificial intelligence, AI, for efficiency, along with innovations in logistics, in blockchain, cold chain solutions. They'll also examine how Africa's critical minerals for green industrialization, SME access to technology, the importance of upskilling, and much more. Great panel too, and great moderator.
Thank you so much, Mark, for taking us through the issues that we'll be discussing, which allows me to go straight to my panelists. And I'm going to start with Mr. Abid Jamestad, the Director, Advocacy and Program Development at Livestock Global Health. And the question that I have for you, Mr. Abid, is what, given the reliance on imported medical devices in Africa, how can special economic zones help localize production of LIDARs, training simulators, resuscitation equipment, and emergency care solutions?
Thank you so much, Stephen, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to make a few remarks to just give some context. LIDAR is one of Norway's leading health tech groups. We have been making life-saving clinical and training equipment. It's a family-owned group, third generation now, with factories in the US, Mexico, China, Norway, and with quite a presence across the globe. And just to give some context on what we're doing on this continent, I can see some mothers in the room, and that's good. But I can see even more people in the room that has been flying. And when you're boarding a plane, you know that the pilot has gone through great training. You know that the pilot is going through simulation at least twice a year, if not more often. When you are giving birth, that is not exact the same situation. Unfortunately, every seven seconds, a mother or a newborn is dying globally. The great health minister in this country, Dr. Mektes, she has said that equals a Boeing 747 crash landing every day, full of mothers and newborns. So that is what we're focusing on with our work on the African continent, trying to reduce that maternal and newborn statistics. And to come to your question, Stephen, I have been very inspired by listening to the economic zones reflections here today, and of course listening to Wamkele Mene talking about the continental free trade area. I will be the best internal champion in our company to say that we need a local production in Africa when it makes business sense. What I think will be quite crucial in that sense is when we are producing something in Mexico and we're sending it to Ghana, is that cheaper to send it from Mexico to Ghana than producing it in Nairobi and sending it to Ghana? I think that will be one key question in this. Does it make business sense? But again, as said, this has been a really, really inspiring day, and I will definitely keep track on what the African Continental Free Trade area will be doing in practice. So let me stop there.
Yeah, produced in one of the African countries, and you have the whole continent as your market. So I think it's good that you listen to the AFCFT Secretariat, and you've also heard that what we are looking for is actually the growth of these special economic zones so that we can anchor our regional value chains. Now, allow me to go to Aissatou Diallo, who is the Chief of the Office for Africa at the International Trade Center. And Aissatou, I would like you to tell us why is the ITC promoting the use of technology to facilitate SME upgrading and market access, particularly in the agricultural or agribusiness value chain. If you can give us also some examples, would be grateful.
As you may know, the International Trade Center is a joint UN and WTO technical cooperation agency. Our mandate is really to help micro, small, and medium-sized companies to connect with market opportunities. So this is our role. Our role is to support private sector development in developing countries. Having said that, we started our journey at ITC with using digital platforms to allow MSMEs, micro, small, and medium-sized companies, to get information on market price, on the rules of origin, on standards to be followed. So we were using digital platforms to promote and disseminate trade and market intelligence. But we realized that it was good to disseminate data, but data is not enough if we want to connect small businesses with market opportunities. And this is why at ITC we launched what we call the SME Trade Academy, which is an online platform which is free for developing countries, where we have digitalized over 100 training courses on how to access market opportunities. For instance, for Africa, in the context of the AFCFTA, thanks to the support that we were getting from Afreximbank. With the COVID crisis, we were approached by a number of SMEs that wanted to go online, and they wanted us to help them, in fact, to develop some online platforms. But we were also approached by tech entrepreneurs that were developing solutions to improve a little bit the agricultural processes. And here I will give you two examples. ITC is currently implementing a project to support tech entrepreneurs in Senegal, in Ghana, as well as here in Ethiopia. And if you go to the exhibition hall, you will see that there is a company, a startup company called Quanomics, which has developed a solution to address irrigation issues here in Ethiopia. Because as you know, sometimes irrigation may create some conflict among farmers. So they came up with a solution which is called CanalNet, which helped basically to first know how much, not how much, but what is the quantity of water which is needed to irrigate a specific plantation area, and also at what time they should release the water. So this application, this solution is working quite well in Ethiopia. They are having a number of demand coming from the government agencies, and now with the support of ITC, they are also exploring some, business opportunities with the East African countries as well as the West African ones. The second example that I'm going to give you is on e-commerce. ITC, again, thanks to the support that we are getting from Japan, we have been working in Nigeria in the Imo state, where we are helping women, especially women and young entrepreneurs, to not connect, but position their product online. Fresh product and also processed product like cassava chips, for instance, for them to be able to sell in Nigeria and in the neighboring countries. So what we have done using AI is to train them to develop their their business profile, but also help them to have a platform using Google or WhatsApp to position their product. And what we have realized is that the fact that we were using AI working with Microsoft in Nigeria has helped them. We started with 100 38 businesses, but 108 businesses were able to develop their own platform and also to position their product, fresh product, as I said, and processed product. And it's working quite well. And we have seen that there is no need to be an expert on digital trade or on web design. Thanks to AI, we were able to help those businesses to create some content, some visuals, and to be able also to promote their product. And it's working quite well. Some of them are now also trying to see if they can go beyond the ECOWAS, beyond Nigeria, beyond the ECOWAS sub-region, and see if they can sell in the ECAS region. So this is what we have been doing, supporting SMEs, upgrading and market access to technology at ITC.
Thank you so much, Aissatou. I think you brought in the issue, even the issues of AI and everything. So let's go to someone who will tell us about the skills development. Although you've said that you've realized that you really don't need to be an IT person to be able to do some of these things. But I'm going to Professor Paul Lalvani, the founder and director of Empower School of Health. And can you please tell us, because we all agree that human capital is key in the various areas for digital skills to implementation and screening of technologies, as well as on policy regulation and laws that relate to technologies. So how can the academia or the academia in Africa support governments in this area, much like academia does in other regions of the world?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to UNECA and the African Business Forum for organizing this very special event. Just some short opening remarks. Empower School of Health is headquartered in Geneva, and we are an Africa CDC and a UN partner organization working across more than 40 countries in the area of workforce strengthening. And our workforce strengthening approaches use large-scale digital learning architecture, which we install and establish inside universities, inside governments and ministries of health. And a couple of examples would be, for example, transforming a university from a physical structure into a digital learning sector, so they could go from 20,000 students to 100,000 students. The other area where we're working across multiple countries is establishing pharmaceutical manufacturing academies. If we're going to be establishing pharmaceutical companies, we cannot be sending Africans to Europe, India, US for their trainings. It has to be done here. But you can't do it in classrooms and you can't do them in universities. You need hands-on experience with the equipment. So we established these academies in partnership with the private sector, with universities and the government, so that there's hands-on learning and experience for the individuals. So coming to the specific question in terms of human capital and working in terms of how can academia work closely with governments and guide them. So when we say academia, we're often thinking about tertiary sector, and tertiary would normally mean universities. And that is very limiting because there's a massive band post-secondary. So after you finish high school, there's a large number of groups and individuals who never go to university. And in Africa, that number is as low as 9% to actually end up in university. And that 9% is 1/4 the global average, not the developed country average, but the global average. And so in terms of the loss that happens is when we start thinking that we need degrees, and we still have that mindset that we need a degree program, which takes anywhere from 3 to 4 years before one is considered to be employable, and often they are not. What the developed countries are now doing, realizing the gap and the weakness in that, is the enrollment in tertiary universities, 4-year programs is declining. Whereas in TVETs and skilling, it's increasing and scaling at a much higher rate. So while most developing countries are still looking to the north and following that model, thinking our approach is let's get a degree. And even today, there's a bias. I want my son and daughter to have a bachelor's degree or a master's. If I have a master's, I want them to have a PhD. But there are so many jobs, and in fact, if you look at the return on investment that's been calculated by the World Bank and many other organizations, the ROI for a shorter skilled program, as long as you keep adapting for the next skill because it keeps changing, is much higher for a TVET than it is for a university education program. So the countries need to really look at what is it that the industry needs. So academia, which often is thinking as an academic, research papers and degree programs, needs to realign itself the way it was 200 years ago. Universities and education institutions were built to address the need of the industry and the market. There's a big dichotomy there. So that needs to come back again. So academia needs to work closely with industry and take that knowledge, take those opinion leaders, those experts, those specialists, those faculty members, and guide government to invest in the right type of education for the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So which then brings me to Raj. We've heard how we are going to build the skills, the workforce, and Dr. Raj Tajuddin is the Deputy Director General at the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, call it Africa CDC. You've just had your summit, including the summit that, the heads of state that deal with Africa CDC. So what measures should policymakers take to develop a thriving regional pharmaceutical value chain without compromising environmental regulations?
Thank you, Stephen. Let me first and foremost thank the organizers of this particular meeting, talking of ECA, to say that Africa CDC is proud to be part of this discussion. And let me also use this opportunity to thank colleagues, panelists, some of whom I've not seen in a long time. Now, having said that, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as you all know, is a specialized public health institution that sits within an intergovernmental political organization called the African Union. So that in itself, it's where we have a unique advantage, in terms of navigating and managing some of those issues as far as local manufacturing capacity is concerned. Let me also say that it took the COVID-19 pandemic, and lot of deaths to remind us that a continent of 1.4 billion people at that time, we are now 1.5 billion, 55 member states only manufacture 1% of its vaccine needs, meaning that we import 99%. If you shift there and go to other products, it's almost the same, talking of a diagnostic, talking of therapeutics. And we also the impact of that, whereby we have to wait until everybody has received fair share of those medical countermeasures multiple times over before Africa could have access to some of those countermeasures. So with that, our head of state and government launched what I call the Partnership for Africa Vaccine Manufacturing. And of course, we didn't embark on that journey alone. We worked closely with our colleagues from UNECA, our colleague from WHO, our colleague from UNICEF, and so on and so forth. And of course, the private sector played a big role in that. And at that time, that was in 2021, what was the goal of that partnership is to shift that needle of vaccine manufacturing from 1% to 60% come year 2040. But we know that that cannot be achieved without shaping the market, because today most of our countries rely on vaccine supply from some of the global institutions, talking of UNICEF, talking of Gavi. So we needed to shape that market. And in that regard, we also had a series of meetings. We did different global initiatives to ensure that certain percentage of their procurement will come from the local manufacturers, you know. And I think we agree that between 30 to 40% of whatever is going to be procured and used on the continent of Africa should be from African local manufacturers, because you need to guarantee market access, you know, in order to incentivize that particular space. The other thing we did was also to map the different clinical trial sites on the continent, you know, to begin to see how do we build the necessary capacity, you know, by way of infrastructure. And of course, I mean, Paul has talked extensively on what we need to do as far as workforce is concerned. Let me state that within the biomanufacturing sector. So Africa CDC also embarked on a project to put in place, or to have in place, what we call the regional centers of excellence for capacity and capability building, you know, to begin to build up biomanufacturing capacity. Because today, what we need, we are far from that. You know, yesterday or 2 days ago, I think we had a similar meeting at Sheraton to see how do we build the necessary workforce. Number 3, we cannot talk of this manufacturing capacity without regulatory capacity on the continent. You know, and I'm sure, as you are all aware, the AU has embarked on the journey to have what we call the African Medicine Agency. And before the end of this month, I think we are going to have the DG of that African Medicine Agency on board, because it's supposed to be an autonomous institution. But beyond that, Africa CDC is working with a different member states to make sure that those national regulatory authorities, you know, they have the needed capacity, you know, to be able to regulate those products. So today, I'm glad that we've moved from 3 around the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. We now have around 8 member states that achieve that maturity level 3 as far as the regulatory space is concerned. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, beyond the local manufacturing capacity and beyond what I've outlined, Africa CDs also embark on supporting our member states to build or to strengthen their primary healthcare system. Because ultimately, you build local manufacturing capacity, you make sure that the products are available, they're accessible, they're affordable. You know, you need to create the necessary demand, you need to carry the population along. And the only way you can do that is to strengthen your primary healthcare system. You know, and in that space, Africa CDC has embarked on a journey in what we call the primary healthcare digitization, connectivity, and solarization agenda. And before the end of this year, we'll be supporting 100,000 of such centers. I won't go into the detail. I think you can always check that on Africa CDC website. Before I yield the floor back to Stephen, financing is critical. I'm sure we're also aware that one of the key side events of this assembly or this summit was the February 14 meeting that was chaired and led by President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, you know, which is around domestic health financing. Because you cannot guarantee your health security through goodwill alone. We have to be seen to be proactive. And one thing our head of states are doing is to make sure that whatever that is coming through the global initiative is just to unlock what is available domestically. So domestic health financing is a critical agenda for our head of state and the government. Last but not the least, partnership. Respected, trusted, action-oriented partnership is key. And within this partnership space, we need to find everything it takes to unlock the resources that is available within the private sector, you know, because that is critical. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raj. So this then brings me to someone who has done actually something very practical also on the ground in the building of value chains development, integrated agro-post industries, multipurpose parks. I don't know whether those multipurpose parks had pharmaceuticals in them, and this is Dr. Papa Tiam. And I'm actually wanting to ask you a different question to the one that I wanted to start with. And the question is, building on your successful coordination of the Ghana Trade and Investment Gateway Project, which, according to the numbers here, resulted in over 300,000 jobs and attracted 12 billion in FDI, or has that potential, what lessons can be applied to ensure SMEs and local entrepreneurs benefit from technology-driven value chain development in Africa's SEZs? And how might these insights help integrate critical minerals for green industrialization while strengthening homegrown capacities and innovation ecosystems, now that we're talking about innovation? Dr. Tiam.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, I was telling this morning both Dr. Ngozi, who used to be my boss at the World Bank when I was developing this Ghana Trade and Investment Gateway project, and also President Mahama, who was the chairman of my oversight committee. So I was telling them, why lament when we have a story to tell and that we can scale up? So since they haven't done that job, I'll try to share with you a few hints about that. Actually, that successful approach to the Ghana Trade and Investment Gateway project has helped us conceptualize an approach to developing what we call growth, multipolar growth centers. You can call it SEZ or what you want, because for me, I don't want to talk about special economic zone, because if everything is special, that it becomes a commodity. So something has to be special, but if everything is special, it is no more special. So I prefer to talk about our multipolar growth centers, because look at this room. If you assume it is a growth center, this is like a roundabout where all roads converge to that roundabout. Those roads are the value chains and the supply chains, like all this window and all this overture that you have here. So this is the very conceptual approach we are developing by building supply chains to structure value chains through the transformation of product lines and orientate infrastructure policy, education policy, any type of policy, because we need an entry point. Because we all have been talking about what we are doing the whole day. Know that every single person here represents an entity that has a single competence that is absolutely necessary to be conjugated in the overall delivery system. So this is the reason why the work we have been doing, and we have started actually with the European Union Commission through the diligence of Dr. Monique, and also the CDC here, because we're going to apply the strategy to try to develop a health-based economic cluster and make it a source of growth. Because health cannot be the poor parent of development, whereas health detention is the first production factor. So we have to trigger it as a source of growth. Now, how did we conceptualize all this thing now? Moving from the practical examples of the Ghana Trade and Investment Gateway project results, we have developed some blocks of pillars that we need to dotate each African country with, and each regional economic communities with. The first pillar is what we call the minimum integrated trade expansion platform. That minimum integrated trade expansion platform is first built on what we called a quality standard metrology and testing infrastructure. You've been talking about quality standards, but now the burden of the certification lies on the laps of the exporting countries. So if you are not being accredited to certify the quality of export, you're not going to move. That is number one. So you need to have that full-fledged minimum quality standard metrology and testing infrastructure every country should possess. And these platforms need to be integrated in the kind of a master platform that have some derivation. The second pillar of that MITEP, we call it MITEP, Minimum Integrated Trade Expansion Platform, is the center of the system. It is a virtual library, interactive for products and market development. Let me give you an example. Our objective is that if you say, for instance, in country X, there is, let's say, banana. There is banana, which is the dormant product line. How do you make best use of it? So we develop what we call banana product ID cards, which means we're going to go with the research institutes to document any type of technical possibilities for transforming any type of bananas. And for each type of the banana, for the type of product, singular product we want to make out of it, we need to trace out the whole sequence of activities that it has to go through, from supporting the farmer to getting the products that is on the shelf of the supermarket. This is why we are having a problem when we talk, say, agricultural value chain as a wholesale. It's not a macroeconomic issue. Here you have to go to product differentiation. And every product has its own value chain, even though you may have common clusters of things that we consider that product. So that mechanism has to be blockchained in the manner that if you enter the system and you type, let's say, banana from Guinea, you should be able to navigate the whole system. And if you enter, for instance, in the factory that is producing, let's say, a banana liquor, if you click on the system, it should show you the whole sequence of the processing. And if you go even on the typical machinery, he will tell you which type of skills the guy operating on there should possess, which will orientate your skills development. If you click on the machinery, it should tell you the type of machinery and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, when you finish your tour, you should be able to download your plan of operations and your business plan. That is the proactive trade information system, which for us is the basic knowledge to democratize product and market development and industrialization through the transformation of these resources. Guess what? If you possess this type of intelligence, information per se, you can develop new consulting businesses in terms of specialized business development services. Because consultant who can write an ITC report, I'm trying to tease my sister here, you find them. But where do you find consultants who can go and transform our own products into most valuable products, value-added products? You don't have. But if you possess that knowledge, they can plug in the very interactive manner, then they can download their knowledge and you can train people to go and help small and medium-scale enterprises, some of which are even informal, to get them plugged to the global value chains. The other one, the fourth pillar of the meetup is what we call an adaptive trade infrastructure, trade development infrastructure. I don't talk about trade facilitation, because trade facilitation is the architecture. It is the superstructure. Here I'm talking about the infrastructure, what is at the basis of the work. So if you get everybody to have his own meetup, and then you have a regional meetup, could be housed, let's say in UNECA, could be housed in AU, you name it, you choose. Then you have a building block. Now what you do with that building block, this comes the third pillar, which is what we call the project development facility. Because projects can be feasible internally, but not factible because they are facing an adverse structural environment where everything around is disrupted, which become adversarial to your project, even if on the paper it is good. So what we do is syndicate all risks that are affecting the project and transform them into business opportunities, which means we're going to bring a grapevine of projects that are pulled together in order to reintegrate the ecosystem. This will be the use of the project development facility because it will help orientate government infrastructure policy, education policy, you name it. The third thing now we have is called strategic public-private partnerships on value chains. Why? In this room are sitting people of different origins. There are sitting some what you call development partners, bilateral partners. We need to help synchronize, harmonize, and have an instrument that can point to the typical infrastructure that is a missing link with the potential value chain, which, let's say, Germans could finance because it's going to help open up investment opportunities for their private sector. So these are the type of work we are trying to do, and this would help align the AU delivery strategy and process and reform the institution.
Thanks, Dr. Tiam. I think that was a clear masterclass on how we can get this right, and that is something you say was done in Ghana. We are looking forward actually to visiting it after this. So we will come to you because my colleagues are here so that we see what we can learn out of this. So last but not the least in this round, because I want to open the floor. I'll not go to another set. I want to open the floor after we hear from Ambassador. So Ambassador Leo Vinovesky is the Director for Economic Affairs, the Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And also, congratulations, is the Ambassador Designate for Israel, the Republic of Angola, DRC, Mozambique, and Sao Tome and Principe. So, Ambassador, given Israel's globally recognized leadership in agricultural innovation, how can Israel agri-tech solutions and expertise be effectively integrated into African special economic zones to modernize livestock, pharmaceuticals, and agri-park value chains? In particular, what strategies would you recommend for fostering technology transfer and capacity building among SMEs in these sectors? Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And allow me, Stephen, to open by remark that it's especially emotional for me to come back to Addis Ababa, where I was the Deputy Ambassador of Israel 15 years ago. I was also Ambassador of Israel to the Côte d'Ivoire and next to Angola. As I'm talking now as a practitioner coming from the diplomacy or the economic diplomacy, and according to my knowledge, my expertise, my experience in the different countries, we are doing for the last probably almost 70 years, 65, 70 years, a beautiful program of cooperation with African farmers, with African agricultural trainers. So for us to say modernization and innovation in agriculture, it's let's say it's our DNA, and to share it with African youngsters generation is for us something in a daily life in Israel. Thousands of Africans have come to Israel for capacity building. Hundreds of agronomists have come to Africa to teach agriculture. I am proud enough to say that we run a program here in Ethiopia. It was all about avocado diplomacy, and Ethiopia is now exporting avocado to Europe. So things like this exist. It's not just a dream coming true. It's actually our collaboration and cooperation with African countries from the very, very beginning. I'm talking about the early 60s, and those leaders in the world, they acknowledge very well, and they know very well that Israel was one of the first countries to come to Africa to share the basic things that we knew by that time, because also Israel was a very young country, coming also from decolonization. But straight to the point, I think that one of the pillars in this process is to continue to modernize and to democratize agricultural education. And we are running programs in Israel of almost 1 year in which African young students of agriculture come to Israel to teach, to learn the best practices in agriculture. And I must tell you that according to our vision in Israel as well, failure is part of the issue. I mean, you can do things with passion, with commitment, with responsibility, with ESG, but you need to allow yourself also to fail. And it is socially accepted to fail in Israel because it is the engine that will bring you to the next level, to try again and to try again. This is what happened with us in the last 70-something years. And this is what shared with our friends, especially with African friends. And remember that Israel is probably the only country linked geographically with African countries. So I think that to modernize, today we are talking in Israel about precision agriculture, in which artificial intelligence is completely incorporated into agricultural solutions. I mean, we reach the stage in which the plants and the crops talk to the farmer. Please bring me water. Please bring me energy. Please bring me sun. And that's our practice. And one of the things that we will see here in Africa, which I mean, not only you can see in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Angola, of course, centers of agricultural excellence in which we display Israeli technologies, not only irrigation, drip irrigation, but also filtering, fertigation, and it's it's a complete approach. And then these centers of excellence in agriculture serves as centers of capacity building for the farmers of all the region. And this is something very emotional to see, very, very really, when you see that people coming from different remote regions in the specific country, it's like you feel that the mission is accomplished. You share what you know with the people you are in contact, you live with. And this is something to be taken into account. And one thing that I would like to relate, again, I'm not a scholar, I'm talking about my practice, yeah? So please distinguish that. But I can relate, of course, of many of the notes that my partners here in the panel said. I do believe that education is the key for everything.
Chief Moderator, I still have 1 minute, which I'll give to Ambassador. Then in 1 minute, we'll...
Very short, regarding the diaspora, and we also have a very rich experience with our diaspora all over the world. And I can speak also as a kibbutz member. I'm a member of a kibbutz in the center of Israel, and which basically, in few words, kibbutz is a mixture between community and agriculture. And I can tell you that those kibbutz that didn't enter the era of technology and innovation, etc., they stayed behind. And it's wonderful to see also this kind of model that maybe can work in other places in the world as well, because we're talking, first of all, about community, business, prosperity, agriculture, and so on. I will be more than happy to share with you some ideas on that also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. So please give a round of applause to my panel.